Characters or champions are the backbone of every fighting game, and since we're playing a beautiful tag game with not too many, it's only natural that we'd cope and theorize about what characters could end up in the game. So that's exactly what we'll be doing today. Welcome to 5 hidden Easter eggs that could be new champions in 2XKO. So for our first Easter egg, we've got Aatrox and Tahm Kench, which might come as a surprise to you if you haven't noticed where they're at yet in 2XKO. If you select the Brazen Hydra stage, you'll find 2 wanted posters in a couple areas on the right side of the bar. You can clearly see both Aatrox and Tahm Kench, but what's funny is they actually decided to use the Fish Trox skin from League instead of Aatrox's base skin. It's called Sea Hunter Aatrox, and it's honestly mad troll. He's literally just a shark. But honestly, I mess with it, you know, it definitely fits the pirate theme. I can definitely see how these guys would be sick for the fighting game though, especially Aatrox. I think Tahm would be kind of goofy though, because like, what is he gonna do? Eat the enemy and then take them to the corner or something? It sounds so troll. For Aatrox, you can totally see how his Q ability would translate extremely well as a simple Rekka series, but I'm more interested in if they'd keep the sweet spot mechanic. The way it works in League is if the ability lands on the enemy and they're in the sweet spot, they get knocked up and it deals more damage. I would not be surprised if this was just thrown out the window completely, but if they did decide to keep it, it would mean he's more of a mid-range character, and I imagine something similar to Darius's S2, where if you hit them at its tip, it applies bleed. His Chainer's W would be pretty sick to see in the game as well, like a sort of slow fireball that if it hits, pulls the enemy in, kind of similar to 2B from Granblue. So yeah, I can definitely see these characters ending up pretty sick. For number 2, we have Riven. So if you go to the Battle Pass on level 25, you'll see the Stealth Master robe, which at first doesn't seem to ring any real bells, and I actually missed the connection initially until a commenter mentioned it to be a Riven reference under one of my shorts. When you take a closer look, it shares Riven's color scheme and even has some of the same design elements like her belt. You can really tell from the chest down, right? The white pants cloth of the belt, the brown chest plate, it's all there. You could even see the green hooded part as a nod to her shoulder armor and the actual hood representing her hair color. Riven's known in the League community to be the fighting game character, so thankfully it should just be a matter of when and not if she's gonna come out. Riven's also a character super close to my heart personally because I used to want to be a League Pro and hit Challenger on her when I was on my League grind. Her Q will clearly be a Rekka series, and since the third hit knocks up, maybe it could just be a launcher in her combo structure, right? Archetype wise, I would love to see her as a mix between mix-up and good sword normals, but hey, I've always wanted to mix Shotos with mix-up, so I might just be biased. Next up, we've got Eren Yeager and Goku. Up at number 3 is Fiora. If you go to the Battle Pass again on level 67, you'll find an emote called On Guard, which is a direct reference to Fiora, given that she's the only fencing rapier champion in League of Legends and it's part of her iconic voice lines. I've still played a solid amount of Fiora. Riven was my one trick, but I can imagine Fiora being so disgusting in this game, especially with her main mechanic being the vitals, you know, the weak spots, the marks. And of course her parry. Imagine she has her own minigame where she just has a mark or vital show up on the enemy, like in League, either on their left or right side, but then for the fighting game, being either overhead or low. If she successfully hits your block on that side, she gains a small amount of HP, just like in game. I can't lie, that might be like way too disgusting to just directly translate it, so a more modest approach would be to make it do extra damage on her next attack within the next 10 seconds if the mark is blocked or procced. That would give Fiora players a reason to try and keep proccing the vitals while also not making it completely game-breaking. I honestly really like that idea. I feel like it's a pretty good translation. For number 4, we've got Kennen. So if you select the Bandlewood Crossing stage, you'll find Kennen right in the middle chilling on top of some trees. I wonder what Riot was on when they were cooking up these designs, bro. It's funny now that I'm thinking about some of these references, like 3 of them are characters I've mained pretty heavily, especially Riven and Kennen, as Kennen was my backup when Riven was picked or banned. The way Kennen plays in League is you keep your space from people with range attacks like shurikens and lightning, then engage on them occasionally for a trade where you can stun them and get out. Or during team fights, you go Unga Bunga mode with his ultimate to flank or hit as many people as possible, doing lots of damage and stunning. Crowd control is a difficult mechanic to translate to fighting games, and it's what his kit revolves around completely. Lastly, for number 5 is Katarina. This one's not exactly an in-game Easter egg, but I felt she was worth putting on the list because she's been treated pretty confusingly by Riot, and it could have some deeper implications if you look into it. So Katarina was initially going to be in 2XKO, but early in development when they swapped the game from 1v1 to 2v2, they decided that she was not going to work because they were not able to figure out how to translate her kit well enough to the fighting game. They really wanted to make that fantasy pop for the people that play Katarina in League, you know, the Katarina fans, and they just weren't able to figure out how to do it at that time. They communicated that because of this, Katarina nowadays isn't even planned for development, and they ended up just using her as a placeholder character to try out new champion abilities instead. Fast forward a bit to today, and Riot released a video about how they create the art for their 2XKO champs and the decisions and cool stuff that goes into that. They ended up making a sick art for Katarina fitting the Halloween darker aesthetic, and it just looked insanely good. It's super troll, but they basically showed it off in a short called Cast Back in 2XKO. Sort of. This confused Katarina fans, and even the intel page on Twitter was thinking that this is going to be a Katarina exploration phase or confirmation since it's official art. Of course, it's not, and a dev commented under their tweet that this was just a for fun exercise and that Katarina is not coming to 2XKO, sadly. So looking at this weird bit of history with Kat, it really is just super troll, and if you ask me, they're dipping their toes in the water with this recent art to see how bad people would actually want Kat in the game. Kind of like checking the pulse to see if they should put her back in development, you know? I could just be tweaking though, and in reality, Riot still isn't even thinking about her. They were just out of touch making this Kat art because they thought it was cool. That is honestly pretty likely. Personally, I do hope she makes it in the game because, I mean, she would just be insanely sick, right? And clearly she'd be a banger mix-up character. That's everything I've got for today, so I hope you guys heard about some 2XKO Easter eggs that you didn't know about, or at least enjoyed the watch and had some fun with the speculation stuff. I'll see you guys again soon with some more 2XKO, but if you want to see more of me, you can also check me out on Twitch for live streams. Peace.
Kitty underground, Kitty underground, they made about the kitty